Welcome to Protecting Africa show. We got Brother Kwaku in the show, and I'm going to be asking a few questions about the African topic I'm covering today. Now, in your observation, what is the root cause of poverty among people known as black people? What do you think?
I think the root cause of poverty among black people is lack of knowledge. In other words, lack of education.
Okay.
Africans are not educated enough. And then sometimes too, lack of proper leadership in our government. Some of the government or the leaders are empowering themselves alone, other than empowering all Africans. They are using African money, the nation's money, for themselves and their family. So these are the root cause of poverty. For poverty in
your observation. In your observation, now, what do you think about the fact that we live in Africa, but everything is about Europeans? Like everything represents like European.
Yeah.
European languages, European identity, European culture, European ownership of our natural resources, land, economy. Everything is like a European based order. Do you think in a system or order that does not represent the interest of Africans as a people, do you think we can not be poor in those conditions? What do you think?
We cannot be poor in...
Are we not going to be poor in an order that has nothing representing our interests? Are we not going to be poor in an order that has nothing representing our interests? That means everything is about Europeans. There's nothing about us. Do you think, are we not going to be poor in such an environment? What do you think?
Yeah, we are going to be poor.
So when you say it's education, education just means learning something, right?
Yeah.
But what kind of education? Because the point here is Africans own almost nothing in their own land.
Yeah.
The economies are not in their hands.
Yeah.
Everything is European based.
Okay.
Now, in those conditions, is the real root cause of the problem the order, the system, right?
Yeah.
Or is it the education? Like you said, and the leadership obviously agree with that. Yeah. Leadership agree because they're supposed to put a fair order where the people are going to prosper, right? Yeah. But now we talk about education because education just means learning something, right?
Yeah.
And then education can be anything.
Yeah.
Like the Chinese type of education is not the same as European type of education, apart from some standard subject, right?
Yeah.
So don't you think the true problem is the fact that in our own society nothing represents us and everything represents European, because in those cases our interests are nowhere to be seen? What you take?
Yeah, it's true. But when I spoke about education in the sense that yes, we can go to school and be educated also. And also we can be educated at home. Okay. Like home base.
Yeah.
They say
education is broad.
Yeah.
But you have what you call formal education, and you have what is education that people get, because everything is education. Learning something is education.
Yeah.
Now the point here is it the so-called education what is causing us, keeping us backward as a people in poverty, or is it the fact that the order does not represent our interest? The fact that because even what we learn is not of our own choosing. Everything is supplied from Britain or from France or from the educational content, right?
Yeah.
So do you think in such an environment African people are going to prosper because our interests are nowhere? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we can. We can
prosper in an environment that represents our interests. How?
Yeah, we can learn our own things.
But I'm saying in an environment that does not represent our interest, I say we can change, obviously.
Yeah, we can
change, but I'm saying while the order that does not represent our interest is in place, can we get out of poverty like that? In such an order, what do you think?
Like get out of poverty
in such as a people,
as a people individually, like not.
I'm talking about as a people, like the majority of the people getting out of poverty. Do you think is it possible in an environment where everything is not in our hands, everything is not about us, nothing represents us? Is it possible?
In that case, it can be possible, but like possibility is less.
It's impossible almost.
Yeah.
But
possibilities
this is
left.
this is the current order in Africa,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Everything is about Europeans.
Yeah.
Nothing is about
Yeah,
Africans.
yeah.
So that we can say that is the root cause of our problem.
Yeah.
Will you agree with that, right?
Yeah, it is, but it's part of the root cause of our problem.
No, it is the key root cause of our problem, because if everything is about us, then we're gonna benefit from ourselves, because we're gonna be all the clothing we're gonna be wearing, we're gonna be made by African tailors.
Yeah.
Imagine the clothing we're wearing. Almost all those clothing. Look at the millions of Africans wearing clothing.
Yeah.
It's not Africans made clothing. You can
Yeah,
see that.
I know,
So
I know.
all these millions that people are wearing through the clothing, we don't make money out of it.
Yeah.
So if everything is, that's because the order does not represent our interest. The order is about European interest. You understand?
I do.
So in those conditions, if everything look, this is money the brother is wearing here. But if an African was, if this was made by Africans, it would be money for Africans.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
It's a lot of money. So it means the root cause cannot be the order, because there's nothing that advances us in this order. Everything we even the food we eat now, the money goes to Europeans.
Yeah.
We are like slaves.
Yeah.
So education, even the education we learn, it is crafted to keep our mind to think low of ourselves.
Yeah.
Are you aware that most people known as
Let me say one thing.
yeah
Okay, can we produce our own food,
our own what?
our own resources?
Oh, obviously, because even if you look at like the case of South Africa, all the farm workers
Yeah.
that are working producing with Africans.
Yeah.
A farm worker is somebody who has the skill of producing food.
Yeah.
So the only thing is those things now are owned by Europeans, they're not owned by Africans.
Yeah.
So the thing that means we have the skill, the tailors, the one that makes clothes is tailor. We got African tailors.
Yeah.
It's now about organizing many of them so that they can supply the clothing market. You understand?
Okay.
Or the farmers can supply enough meat or enough fruit or enough things. It's just about make the government having a policy that's gonna say we want in 5 years maybe 30% of the market of clothing to be African supplied. You understand? And stuff. So until the order does not represent our core interest, we will never make progress. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I do.
That means everything must be about us, because this is our home. Everything must be about Africans. Owning, producing, doing. It should even the language must be about us.
Yeah,
the
it's our land.
Identity.
It's our land, so it should be about us.
So until then, we will never, because even the African doctors that have qualified as doctors, they have the image of being less qualified than the European doctor. Do you know that?
Yeah, I do.
Like people see European doctor as better than African doctor.
I do.
So while they both qualify as doctor, they all pass the exam. You understand? So the problem is the system or the order, which is an anti-African order, because it's not about us. You understand? You agree with me on that, right?
But the order, where does it come from? They
set it up, because the order is how things are set up. Order is just like how things are set up.
So how do we break this setup?
Okay, good.
Our leaders.
Yeah, it is the government. That means you make it to government, and then you implement a plan that's gonna remove the European order and replace it with an African order. In that case, you need to make sure that an African language must become the main language of communication, because the order is also what goes into the people's brain, and what kind of information, and what goes into the people's brain, what is it telling the people? Because what we hear here is telling us that we are low, we are inferior, we can't do this. So in those conditions, the people are broken mentally, and if your mental is broken, you can't do nothing. So also the language must be an African language, the culture, the identity, the ownership. That means you have to set up an order where things are based on African interests and values. Do you agree with me on that, right?
I do.
So the root cause of poverty in Africa is the racist colonial order prevailing, not so-called education, because education is broad, you understand? And stuff. Actually,
but it does play part.
Yeah, but we got qualified people. Let's take an example. Africa has enough skilled people to rule itself and to get out of poverty and to train others, to draw those who are in poverty. Why is it not happening? Because we have enough engineers, enough...
how many people are empowering themselves? How many African leaders?
That I'm talking is the system. What it means is you could have the whole... and the system won't even allow Africans to get enough, a lot of engineers, a lot of things, because it's a system, you understand? So the number one is the order that must be replaced from a colonial order to a...
Let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
How will you feel like if someone is in Europe and then seeing that people in certain place in Africa are struggling.
Yes.
While the government is benefiting, what will they think about us?
Okay, good point you're making. The point here is the people in Europe must ask the question, why in that particular African country everything is about them, not the local people? Because for the people not to struggle, things must be about those people. But if you go to Gabon, for example, everything is about French. Nothing represents the interests of the people there. Not even the ownership of the economy or natural resources, not the oil. So they cannot wonder why are people suffering when everything is about them. They mean the people of that land have been denied the opportunity to benefit themselves out of their human life. You understand?
Okay.
So they cannot act like stranger. Because for you to, if Africans were owning everything in Africa and we were in charge, not under a system where they control everything, we will not suffer. Because people that are truly independent don't suffer. Because everything is yours, you understand, in your own whole land, you understand? Let me take an example like in Gabon. Gabon people are suffering, but it's only a 1 million something population, and they have plenty oil. The oil of Gabon alone can make zero poverty there, because they're only a small population. Why people are still suffering? Because the oil is entirely owned by French, you understand? So people can't act like they don't know. The problem is we live under colonialism, because if your order is about European, not about Africans, that's colonialism, you understand? So the problem is the order. You agree with me on that, right? The order. Because this is the basis of progress. Let's say if you go to China, why are the Chinese people doing well? Because in China, everything is about Chinese.
Yeah.
If you go to China, you won't find everything about French. If in China everything was about French, the Chinese people will be suffering. You understand?
Yeah, I do.
If you go to France, everything is about France. If you go to England, everything. So for people to, if you come to Africa, everything is about Europe. You understand?
Yeah.
So that's why people are suffering.
Yeah.
You agree with me on that, right?
Yeah, I do get.
Very interesting. Any closing argument you would like to say to our viewers?
I don't.
No closing argument.
Yeah, but